President of the Beech Grove Redevelopment Commission in the interim, so I will call the meeting to order. It is 7:03 p.m. September 20th, and I will take roll starting over here.
I'm Ron Moat.
Kathy Chappell. Dawn Whalen.
Stephanie Hubbard.
Joe Griffin.
Jennifer Spitz.
And right now we'd like to accept the resignation of Rick Skirvin, and he was our last vice president, I believe. I don't have his resignation in front of me, but he did resign, so I would like someone.
Someone was at the Apple store. You just have to learn to use it, and it's taken me 3 months, and I'm still there.
Do you want to read that in the record for us?
Okay. It is with a heavy heart that I am serving notice that I resign my position with the Beech Grove RDC. Because of my heavy travel schedule, I cannot make a meeting to effectively help the city I love. My missed meetings, I believe, are starting to negatively affect the RDC from the community standpoint. I do not want to get in the way of progress, so I wish you all luck and thank you for your volunteered service to this community. Rick Skirvin.
I need a motion to accept.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So unanimous. And we need to elect some new officers. I was the interim president. The vice president interim was Rick Skirvin, who's resigned. Dawn Whalen is our secretary, and she will remain our secretary. We just need to vote on a new president and a vice president. So any nominations?
I nominate Stephanie to stay president.
A motion to nominate Stephanie Hubbard as president. Anybody second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Sorry.
Fine. And a nomination for vice president?
I nominate Joe for vice president.
I'll second the nomination. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's a unanimous decision. Do we have the August 24th meeting minutes? Read those into the record.
Beech Grove Redevelopment Commission meeting minutes, August 24th, 2012. Stephanie called the meeting to order at 5:30. Roll call, Dawn Whalen, Rick Skirvin, Stephanie Hubbard, Jennifer Spitz. First order of business, Stephanie addressed the need to vote on a president and vice president so that we could have someone to run the meeting. Rick Skirvin nominated Stephanie as interim president. Dawn made a second. Motion carried. Rick Skirvin nominated himself as interim vice president. Stephanie made a second. Motion carried. Once there is a full board, there will be new nominees. Old business, rock pile. Stephanie presented a summary report of the real estate appraisal of the rock pile. She also addressed the blank letter of intent that was signed to the NRP so that NRP can move forward with the things they need to do in order to apply for tax credits, etc., for financing of the property. It was found after the fact that the contract blanks have been filled in. Stephanie states, "It is best that we move forward with the donation of the land." Stephanie said she would like to have the contract amended stating, "If not developed land is returned, development to be a certain financial standard, development must be done in a certain time frame, and can't give the property to a nonprofit." Stephanie stated that she and Dawn met with Mary Hada and Kyle Hendricks at IDEM regarding the planning. Jennifer asked why she and Rick were not aware of the meetings with Kyle and that emails had not been going back and forth. Stephanie said that the emails regarding the meeting had went to the RDC email. She stated that if she gets something that wasn't sent to the RDC email, she will be sure to forward it to everyone. New business. Stephanie read into record John Morgan's resignation letter. Rick made a motion to regretfully accept John's resignation. Stephanie made a second. Motion carried. Stephanie read into record Eric Witham's resignation letter. Rick made a motion to accept Eric's resignation. Stephanie made a second. Motion carried. Additional items. Let's see. Bills to be paid. There were none that needed to be paid. Public comments. Kathy asked why a blank document was signed. John Morgan commented on it, stating when he signed it, it was with the understanding that the completed, filled-in copy would come back to the commission for approval completion. Document was completed without knowledge of the commission by Eric. Stephanie commented that it was her understanding that it was to come back for completion approval as well. John Morgan stated he went through the 36.7 statute and can't find anywhere where a RDC establishes a CDC. The only thing he could find was 36-7-14-12-2, where financial assistance can be provided. He found a legislative body can create a CDC. Stephanie addressed this by saying the RDC doesn't create a CDC. Eventually the RDC will appoint a board of directors and they will create a CDC. RDC will allocate funds in the form of a grant to help get the CDC started. Carla asked about who decided the CDC needed to be created. Was it the council? Stephanie answered that the mayor had made a declaration stating that he wanted a CDC created, and he handed it off to the RDC to do the legwork so that it could be created. She states the most involved the RDC would be is to appoint the board. Stephanie would like to put together a committee to volunteer with the CDC. Carla asked if there was a time frame for NRP. Stephanie stated we didn't know that yet. John asked when we would have a signed purchase agreement for the rock pile. Stephanie wasn't sure when that would take place exactly. Stephanie advised that Mary Hada and Kyle Hendricks will be at the next meeting on 9/20/12 to answer questions. John Morgan said he talked to people in Avon and Noblesville. These people said that the NRP are good corporate neighbors. Rick made motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:15. Stephanie seconded and all approved.
I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Do we have meetings from the previous meeting in July? So I don't think we did that. It's all right. We'll carry that to the next meeting. We need to approve the minutes from July. Old business. The rock pile. Updated donation agreement, item extension of grant for property. So, I want to move down to the next line right there. Speakers, Mary Hada and Kyle Hendricks, if you guys are available. Mary, if you want to go, you can step up to the podium, please. This is Mary Hada. She's from the NRP group, and she's here to speak about the rock pile and how they would like to develop it.
Yes, and needless to say, rock tile is not going to be in the name of this development.
I'm sorry, Beach Grove Senior.
Yeah, it's Beach Grove Senior right now. Now, when we get the tax credits funded, it'll have a marketing name. It won't remain Beach Grove Senior, but that's with the LLC that we've set up so far. In order to submit a tax credit application November 1st to the Indiana Housing Community Development Authority. But before I get into that, I feel like I should give you a brief history of the NRP group so you know who we are and what we do. We started in Cleveland in 1995, and we're a vertically integrated company. We have a development company, a construction company, and a management company. And currently we have offices in Ohio, Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, Florida, and New York. And we develop about 20 to 30 projects a year. And in Indiana, we're finishing up one in Noblesville, Avon, Lebanon, and Evansville right now. And we have been the #1 affordable housing developer in the country for numerous years based on volume, but we also have been the multifamily developer of the year too in 2009 and 2011 we were the finalist. So when we came to Beach Grove, we had met with the mayor and trying to see what we could do with the hospital. That was what we originally looked at. When we realized that the numbers couldn't work for that, we were trying to see if there was something else in Beach Grove that we could develop senior housing on. We have numerous products that we develop. We do single family, we do 2-story walk-ups, we do 3-story, 4-story family, 4-story senior, and then we do our cottage style senior. And the cottage style senior seems to be the most popular with the senior citizens because it's got a front porch and a back patio. And when they're downsizing from their homes, they like to be able to have a little area in the front that they can grow flowers in and whatever. So that one has been the product that they seem to like best. And driving around, we felt that that elevation would blend in nicely with the neighborhood as well. With the 76 units that we're proposing, 38 one-bedroom and 38 two-bedroom, we would also be developing a clubhouse and internal sidewalks throughout the property. And we try to make it a senior community. So in the clubhouse, we've got a community room with a flat-screen TV and a fireplace and a kitchen, offices, usually an exercise room, and then a laundry room that has 24-hour access. The units also have laundry hookups in there for washer, dryer. So the seniors have the option of both to use. And then it also typically includes a computer room, and I'm bouncing back and forth. The units also include a security system. So each senior has that available to them, and then it's their option whether they want to turn it on and utilize it and pay the fee every month for the security. We don't typically find that to be an issue or a problem, and certainly not in this community. So with that, we were hoping that we could come into agreement with the Redevelopment Commission to submit, hopefully for 2 rounds. We would submit this on November 1st with IHCDA, and then we would find out in February if we got funded. If we did not get funded, because...
Just 1 second, you had a lot of letters there.
Indiana Housing Community and Development Authority.
And that's about your...
for the tax
credits.
Yeah.
And I just kind of want to relate that to everyone, that that's about your tax credits. You need to submit all of this to them, because we're getting ready to vote on the things that you need to submit to them. So
right,
I just want to make sure everyone here understands what you're talking about.
And IHCDA, Indiana Housing Community Development Authority, has a qualified allocation plan that they write. It's they write it every 2 years. And so we're trying to meet all the criteria in this plan, and our application is typically about 500 pages, and we incorporate a market study and an appraisal and environmental phase 1 in the report, as well as all the architectural drawings and the other mandatory information that they require.
And all those things are basically complete. I've seen your appraisal, the phase one, and we did the soil samples over there. All those things are included, so I just want.
Yes, and a copy of the market studies here too, which I don't typically give to the mayor, but if they ask, or sometimes I offer it, just because if a market study hadn't been done recently, it really does offer a good picture of your community and where everything stands, and usually they appreciate getting it. So we have invested a lot of money so far to try and make this an application that will get funded. And one of the portions of the application is site control. So that's where we come into tonight with the donation agreement that has been written by an attorney.
Absolutely.
Okay?
We have two things in front of us. One is the donation agreement that Mary's talking about, and in addition to that, we have a grant from IDEM, and I think we need to try to approve of both of those this evening if we're all in agreement. If you have any questions about those things, commission members or the public, we'd like to address those tonight.
Sure.
So.
The one is the donation agreement, but then the other one is the extension of the grant that was funded a few years ago. And that required matching funds in order to do the phase 2 remediation that's required on the site. So with the meetings that we had, they were going to close it out because Beech Grove hadn't taken advantage of the grant. And so we need to write a letter to ask for an extension of that, and then we were also working on the matching funds. And I think I've got Indiana Brownfields program convinced. That's the other item too that I sent you, Stephanie. Convinced that the infrastructure work that we would do, which would amount to about $760,000, would be enough so it would be considered the match, and the Development Commissioner of the city wouldn't have to come up with the matching funds.
Does everybody understand what she's saying? That there's the IDEM grant that we're talking about is a matching grant. So there's a portion of it that they'll pay, and then there's a portion of that we'll have to pay, or find another way to match. And they're saying that that portion of the grant can be matched by funds from whatever you guys are putting into the project.
Right. Originally, this grant was awarded in 2009 for $159,000 to do the remediation. And then the match that the Development Commission had to come up with would be $119,000. And so that's where I'm still working with the Indiana Brownfields to get an updated quote so the numbers are more accurate to reflect 3 years of price increase. And so then the match, of course, would be more as well if they decide to fund more too. So in order to get it reviewed, we need to have a letter asking for an extension.
And I'm sorry,
go ahead.
you said the $760,000 that you were talking about, Mary, that was what were you going to be doing?
That we would, it would enable the Redevelopment Commission to utilize the grant without having to come up with the match money.
And you were going to, what work was that going to be done?
It's infrastructure
Okay.
work.
I knew I missed that part. I knew
I've got it all itemized if you want to see
No,
it.
that's fine. I just
Actually, yeah, if you do have it itemized, we would like
This
to.
is the letter, Stephanie, that I don't know if you remember receiving. I sent you one September 6th, and then I sent you
I
this
just want
one.
everybody to
And
see
that's
everybody
match
to
letter.
see
I thought that
everything that's going on.
was this one here. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Just want to make sure everybody sees what's going on. You've got it. You guys know what? Okay.
And you've cleared this with IDM and the Brownfields?
Well, I've met with them, and it's not IDEM. IDEM approved the plan that Hull and Associates wrote for the remediation, but it's Indiana Brownfields that has to approve the grant. So I've talked with them initially, and basically what they said is, well, we've given you advice on what to do, but we're not going to give you a determination until you send in the letters.
Right, and I think they spoke to that effect when they were here
Right.
that one night.
But I
as
think
well.
they're extremely cooperative,
Yeah.
and what we've been told is all they're concerned with is that somebody redevelops the property.
Yeah, they would really like to see it
Right, and
closed
they're
out.
concerned with, a lot of people have requested these grants and then not done anything with it.
Right,
And so what they've said to us is, if you're going to do something with it, we're going to work with you.
yeah,
So, and I think you feel the same way as we do. We all have the same objective. That
Right.
We just want to see the property redeveloped. Us, obviously, for our own reasons, because we want revenue for the city. You, because you want revenue for your company. Them, because they've spent all this money and something needs to come of it.
yes.
So we
Well,
all have our-
you know, I think their ultimate goal is not only redevelopment for the community, but when they have an outstanding brownfield sitting out there, they want to see it remediated and cleaned up
Exactly.
and not be a potential contaminant source.
So they've been good advisors to you and kind of approving everything that you've been doing, or up to this point, or just kind of generic saying, yeah, until we see the plan totally?
They've been
Exactly.
very cooperative.
Yes,
in my-
yes.
In my opinion,
Very supportive.
they want to see projects completed.
In fact, they even sent us sample letters on how to write it.
Yes, here's what you need to do. Yes, I got those same letters, so I felt very confident in the fact that they want to see this completed. We obviously want to see it redeveloped, and, you know, you have a very clear interest in the project. So I think we're all on the same page.
Mhm.
So I guess a proper question to ask is the brownfield seems very positive by everything that you've been turning in so far and supportive.
Yes, yes. I don't know if we'll have a determination from them before November 1st when we submit this application. We're hoping we would, because it's more favorable when there's more entities coming together. IHCDA looks on that more favorably, but it's something that we're still going to pursue. And even if we didn't develop it, it would still help out the city of Beech Grove get this completed.
That is all my questions. Do you guys have any questions? Joe, any more questions?
Not yet, not so far.
Okay, does anybody out here, would you mind coming to the podium?
I would, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
That's
Kathy
fine.
can't.
Kathy, you're
Kathy's
right.
not mobile.
First question, the distance between the actual senior housing and the railroad yard, and how would that be divided?
Well, the street's going to divide it. Garstang will divide it. So then the setback of the buildings is within the code for the zoning.
I was just wondering the fit between the seniors and the railroad yard.
Yeah. Well, we're going after home funds for this, and that also requires environmental record review, which we have completed as well. And they're very critical as to what they allow the home funds to be developed on. And if they felt that the railroad track would be a noise hazard, they would require us to do a noise study to make sure. And then we would have to do extra insulating to the apartments and everything to make sure that it was, you know, comfortable living environment.
Okay, thank you.
And I can speak to that, as I live on Second, so I live just about as close, and I actually like it.
I live by railroad tracks
Once you
too.
get used to it,
Yeah,
it's
kind of
just
puts you
part
to
of your
sleep.
environment, and I really like living close to it, and that's just my personal thought on it. I want to speak to the things that we talked about last time as a commission, and most of you weren't here, so that's why I wanted to speak to them. We talked about conditions of donation. And all of those NRP has included in the donation agreement per our request. And I just want to go over those with the public to note, for them to note that those have been included in their donation agreement. They have the same condition, which was that an approval of recipients or its affiliates' application for low-income housing tax credits to the IHDCA, which means if they don't get their tax credits, that's a condition of donation, so it will come back to us. Recipient's development of the property commences within 30 months after the effective date. So the effective date of this agreement, which should hopefully be today, in 30 months we hope to commence the development of the property. Recipient development of the property for approximately 80 senior, and like you said, approximately 80, so you're saying 76, which is, it's about 80 units. Senior cottage style rental units similar to Noblesville Senior Apartments in Noblesville, Indiana, in finished, fit, and trim, which means basically the standard of that development will be the same standard as here. So the standard of development in Noblesville will be similar to what we'll see here, which I think, we all know Noblesville. That's a pretty good standard. So those are all things that we had discussed at our previous meeting that I think, we obviously came to an agreement, but I wanted everybody to know that is in this document.
The only caveat I want to add to that is the number of units. And the reason we phrased it that way is because we haven't had the engineering done to know about retention.
And I know you and I and Kyle and Dawn had all discussed that, and the mayor, but, and that's an approximate,
Right.
approximation, and that's why it says approximately. So, as long as we come in with somewhere in between there, and that's where we had gotten into discussion between 9 and 11 million, you can't really put a numeric value on that at this time in the market because values fluctuate, but number of units don't necessarily.
Right.
So-
I mean, we're projecting about 11,060,779 with our current pro forma. It will be close to that when we submit it to IHCU, and that becomes a public document.
Right, but what is going to happen in 30 months with the market? I mean, it's a
Right.
very volatile market, so as long as we get to an approximate number of units, I think that, the market will determine our revenue as far as tax income. So, and that'll affect your revenue.
Yeah.
It affects everything.
Well, it'll affect what the investors buy the tax credits at,
Right.
what pricing.
So, and the market determines everything, and that's why we love America. Capitalism. That's why I love America.
John, yes,
John, go ahead.
Going back, last time I spoke with Kyle,
Okay.
he mentioned that the possibility, since you're basically donating the property and the asking price could possibly be offset.
I can answer your
in
question. He submitted that, and that was declined. So that's why we're going with the infrastructure, this paperwork right here, if you want to see it, it's available. This $760,000 is what we're trying to use as a match now for the infrastructure, because they did decline to use the appraisal value of the property as far as donation. Are you with me?
Just curious.
Okay.
What happens if these housing tax credits aren't met? Are you pulling out totally? Or are you going to do another angle, or what's going to happen there?
You mean if we don't get funded? That's why we wanted 30 months, because we wanted to go 2 rounds if we did not get funded. But the way this is scoring, IHCA is scoring brownfields pretty high. So that's why we think we've got a really good chance.
So on worst case scenario, if it falls through, you're still going to stick around?
Oh, yeah, we'll submit. We're not going to spend $20,000 for an application and just do it 1 round.
Right. Plus all the other costs that you've incurred.
Right,
phase
right.
1 and all those things.
Yeah, this one's been kind of expensive so far, but yeah, we always want at least 2 bites at the apple.
And I think that's why I'm so convinced, is that you guys have been in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
I think you are very, very willing to, you're committed to developing this property, and that's who we're looking for. So, that's just what I have to say about the matter. I'm very convinced you're committed to developing the property, and I'm committed to whoever's committed to doing that.
We've
So-
also got one that we just finished in Avon, too, if anybody's driving that way.
Could
Right
you
by
give
the
us the
hospital.
addresses to both those, Avon and your...
Sure.
That'd be good.
I don't know them, right off the top of my head, but I will get them to you.
Okay.
And,
Is this PowerPoint yours? This,
this is
No,
IUPUIs. We'll get to that.
I'll send them to Stephanie, okay?
Does anybody else have any questions, or we're going to go ahead and vote on this? Mr. Mayor? Questions? John?
Just a comment.
Okay.
I spoke with I believe it was a council lady in Avon,
Mm-hmm.
kind of I was on the redevelopment commission, just being nosy.
Yeah.
In Noblesville, they spoke highly of them.
Well, thank you, that's good to
And
know.
very good corporate man.
I've heard that from several communities.
And in Avon, we did cottage and 3-story. So that's why, you know, if we do a phase 2 or something, I'd like you to see both products.
Are you planning on expanding up there, taking over more area if you can get in here? More of that land over?
In here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You could see in the market study, it more than supports it. So we know that there's a good demand here.
So you got copies of that market report?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually right over, I'm sorry, guys, there's some stuff right over there. We ran over in caucus, so we didn't get to that, but yeah, there are market study stuff over there, there's enough for everybody. They do have a phase 2 plan if we make it through this part. Tim?
Yeah, if you're funded through the first round, are you still going to wait the 30 months, or will you get started earlier?
The 30 months, we just wanted that span of time in case we had to apply again for the funding. But if we get funded in February, then more than likely November, we'll be breaking ground
Okay.
and need 12 months for construction.
Cool.
Anybody else?
So you figure it's going to take you 12 months from groundbreaking to getting it done to have people in there?
We're production builders, and we usually will turn over buildings probably within 6 months and start leasing them once the road's in. But we like to stay 12 months because, you know, in case there's a snag somehow. So we don't like to underpromise.
And your company's handling the whole thing? Since
Yes,
you're-
yes. We do hire locally, though. I mean, we don't have a hammer in our office. We bid out all the contracts.
And you pay the prevailing wage when you do stuff?
I think the home funds will demand that. I'm not certain, I gotta check that.
I think you're correct. I mean, all the ones I've done, they've demanded prevailing wages.
What's the investment, Mary, how much?
The total investment of the property, over 11 million.
All right, last call. Anybody else?
My side A is blank. Do you happen to have that? Or
Is that the,
site plan is attached?
yeah, I can just give you another one. I wasn't real good with drawing the red line. This is the only one I have in my file, but it's supposed to be like that. Do you have a site plan? Did you guys get a site plan?
There is one in our file, but no, we didn't bring it.
I've seen something like this.
Yeah, but I thought that we had seen it, but we have a lot of new members, so they may not.
Okay, I mean, I've got a copy of the site plan if you want it.
Do you have to see the site plan real quick?
Please.
Yeah. All right.
I might have scribbled on it. Yeah, because we're going in for rezoning too on this, for variance. Yeah. This is the site plan with the cottage style units. The only note I had over here is we were thinking about moving the clubhouse, but that's the clubhouse. You can have that. The other thing, Susan Shepard used to live in this community, and she's one of the analysts for IHCDA, so we thought, ooh, good. Maybe that'll help us with this application a little more.
So when do you
Can
go
I
in
ask
front
one
of
more question? What is the selling price of the property?
donation, do I understand?
Yes, this is a donation agreement. There's
For
a
that agreement.
$0 value.
Were they provided a picture of our cottage-style units?
I think I saw one at our meeting, but I don't think anyone else here has seen one, so if you have one.
Now, could you make this all like in a PowerPoint presentation so we can just put it on the Beach Road website? Is that okay? Because that'd be great to have something like that out there so the public can see it.
Sure.
Or some sort of display that you want out there to show what's coming and what you're proposing so the citizens can get out there and take a look at it.
Yeah.
It's good advertisement too.
Well, that's typically what happens. We do that, and then we get all kinds of people calling, and they do have a tendency to misunderstand and think that it's going to be available for leasing, and that they don't know that we have to wait till we get funded. But I don't have any problem with that. I just I'm apologizing because I thought that had been provided. So I can give you a folder on our company as well.
We can get everything up on our website and put it on there. It's a good idea.
Because we'll put up their proposed site, how that's so then we'll be
Yeah.
calling it big letters.
All right, has everybody seen everything they need to see? Here is the motion that I'd like to see. There are some blanks on the form, as you'll note. I would like a motion to fill in the appropriate, I mean, it's usually, I think it's just the date, approximate number of acres, the location as far as the corner of the intersection, the closing date, that all those things be filled in by the President of the Commission and then approved. I don't want this to fall through the cracks again. I want them to be able to use this document, and these things aren't filled in as of right now. They're menial. There's dates and locations. I mean, obviously everything you need to know about the documents available to you. But I would like to seek the permission of the Commission to fill in the remaining items and then approve the document. So that is the motion. If somebody would like to make it, that's the motion I'd like to see.
I'll make that motion.
That motion.
What Stephanie
That I can fill it in and approve it, and that is the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that an aye, Joe? All right, so the motion carries, and the donation agreement is approved, and I will fill in the date and the location and all of those things. So,
All right, thank you very much.
motion is approved. We're going to move on to the motion for approval of the Indiana Brownfields program, extension of that grant that's already been extended to us. We want to submit a letter to them to extend that grant for us. I need a motion for that.
I will make a motion that Stephanie sign as president to request the extension of the Brownfield grant.
Okay, and then the second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. New business. Dr. Jan Cowan from IUPUI, Associate Professor and Director, Architectural Technology Program, Purdue School of Engineering and Technology. Jan Cowan.
We're up.
And I'll introduce Dr. Cowan. We spoke on the phone a couple weeks ago, and he's got some very interesting ideas about IUPUI partnering with the City of Beech Grove and the Redevelopment Commission on ideas regarding Amtrak and several other things. So go right ahead.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor, as well as Stephanie, and also the members of this committee for having us here. And at this time, I'd also like to introduce my colleagues as well. It's not just all about me. So maybe if I could get Joe, if you don't mind standing and introducing yourself.
Hi, I'm Joe Chavis. I'm also a lecturer at IUPUI. I teach a variety of engineering courses at Open Computer Programming, electrical engineering, power chain, and a lot of these kind of projects. Is that introduced?
And then Teresa, if you don't mind.
I'm Teresa Bennett, and I direct IUPUI's Office of Community Engagement.
And then Kirsten, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Kirsten Hill. I'm a junior at IUPUI, and I am a Sam Jones Scholar helping on research with Dr. Collins.
So I'd like to begin by saying that we're not necessarily here to propose solutions, but we're here to, first of all, tell you that we're your good neighbor and that we would like to work with you. And I guess that's sort of where we begin. And I'd also like to say that we represent the largest department in the School of Engineering and Technology at IUPUI. So in our department, of which I am the associate chair, we have everything from motorsports engineering to interior design, architectural technology, biomedical engineering technology, and I could go on and on and on. So our reason for being here is to help, and help in any way that you people see fit. So if we do transition into this packaged PowerPoint, by no means is it something that we need to stick with. And we're charged as instructors and students, and also the position that Teresa has with the Solution Center, to helping the communities that surround us, you know, both locally, nationally, internationally. And that's part of our job. So we want to reach out to you folks. We want to say that this will also benefit us. It'll benefit our students if we can get them involved, and hopefully it'll benefit, you know, the community members that are in this wonderful community here right on our doorstep. So what has happened is that several of us have gotten together and just brainstormed some ideas relative to Beech Grove. We're poised to develop some projects, possibly seek out some funding, which is something that Teresa can help us with, as well as some funding agencies that we have both internally and externally. And we would like to start working with you folks on several things that we discussed with the mayor in our previous meeting. And the mayor also brought up some potential ideas that I'll speak to here as well. And then I'd also like Teresa and Joe and Kirsten to chip in at any time. Okay? And I don't want to keep you too late, so we'll be somewhat brief. But the point I want to make is that you know, we have some ideas. Possibly this meeting can be used to, you know, just plant and seed those ideas and get the community talking about how we could help you. Teresa's job, maybe if you don't mind explaining how you fit into all of this, Teresa, I think that would help before we begin. Yeah, sure.
Here, we'll get you on camera.
So I'll pass the mic
we
over to
blast this all
Teresa.
over the internet and everywhere, so.
Hi, as I said, I'm Teresa Bennett, and I didn't say this. I direct the IUPUI Solution Center. I have some information I can leave behind if you want to learn more about that. But in general, Solution Center is the Office of Community Engagement. So it's our job to do a couple of things. One, to facilitate interaction back and forth between the communities around IUPUI and in central Indiana specifically. Sometimes it's a little hard to find your way around a large campus like ours. We have 21 schools and 30,000 students and more than 6,000 faculty. So.
And 9,000 parking spaces.
And actually, I will quote the chancellor by saying we have plenty of parking. It's just when people come. So yeah, it can be challenging to just, if you have an idea, a question, and you're seeking information, you wanted to create a partnership with IUPUI or Indiana University, or frankly, I'd connect you to any of the universities in Indiana, but you don't always know where to start. So that's one role that I serve. The other role is I'm a program officer for a grant. We have some matching funds. It's not large grants, not the kind you've been talking about here with your gifts and things like that, but help us to facilitate and seed and sometimes expand these opportunities. And opportunities can be in the form of internships, and I think most people know that those are where a student is engaged in an organization for an extended period of time. They're learning, but they're also contributing. We also can help with projects, small projects. There might be things that even your commission is asking questions about and doesn't have time to do the study themselves. So we can connect you to schools or students or faculty who might be able to do those sorts of studies for you. So those could be projects or research projects. And then there are also partnerships that we create in terms of connecting you to the intellectual property of the campus. So there may be discoveries or inventions or technologies or things that you'd like to be involved in or learn more about and things like that. So that's really the role that I serve on the campus. Is that what you need?
Yeah, thanks, Teresa.
I think it's really great, and I'm a big interrupter, so I'm going to interrupt. I think the two things that I see as far as that goes, I mean, just right off the bat, are internships in regards to these commissions, not just ours, but they take a lot of legal services, and I know IUPUI's, you know, the law program over there is extensive and well-renowned. And if we could get some help in that regard, because the expense that's gone into our legal services, where we could negate some of that expense by taking the knowledge of an intern and doing a lot of the forward research in that, and going, okay, we've taken it 90% of the way, and now let's get an attorney to take it the rest of the way. I think that could be helpful. And I also think that we're trying to do a community development corporation, whereas we don't have nearly there's not really a precedent for that. But I think with IU, you know, they started the new school of philanthropy, which is
just approved.
Yeah, just it amazed me. So I'm going that. I mean, to me, a CDC is philanthropy. So, you know, if somebody from that school wanted to come aboard and say, hey, we want to head this up, or we want to start a committee, or we want to, like, for a long time in Beech Grove, the RDC has been this thing where it just bleeds money. Like, and they don't realize that's taxpayer money. That's my money, and your money, and your money. That's taxpayer money. It's be spent in a way that is responsible. And the most responsible way to do that is to take people that are learning these things and growing these things, and it should be really like a think tank. And then take those thoughts and make them happen. Do the planning, do the foresight, and then make them happen. And what's the precedent right now is, let's just make it happen. Let's just do it. We got to get it done. Let's spend the money. Let's pay all these attorneys and consultants. And I just want to see a lot more planning go into it. And I think we can take these young people who have a lot of great ideas and the time and the capacity to plan and then move forward.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you brought up several important points that we try to get across to our partners, whether they be governmental jurisdictions or nonprofits or for-profits. And you're already on board with that, I can see. The only caution I will say is I like to make sure that you're aware that the students aren't experts. So they're learning with you and they're using your guidance.
That's where I say you take it 90% of the way, then you bring in the experts and you go, that's not going to work.
And that's really exciting for them too, because we are hopefully helping you build capacity in your organization at the same time that you are being a really good steward of the students' knowledge and information and learning and growth. And so many times what we find is that the students who are able to do these internships or projects, ultimately, they'll make great contacts. You may not hire them here in the city of Beech Grove, but they'll have made contacts that lead to those jobs. And that's another part of our mission, is to try to increase the numbers of graduates staying here and working in central Indiana or in Indiana generally. And so you're a big part of that puzzle, is, you know, and I think it's somewhere in your plan to begin to attract more of these young urban professionals. And this is another two-way street to doing that. As they become more aware of Beech Grove, then it becomes a word of mouth. We have a project right now on the Near East Side. We have a grant with the Chase Foundation that's matched by some of my funding. And it's been really interesting. Some students we've had several phases to it. We're only through the first couple of phases of a 5-phase project that'll end at December of next year. But the students who did some of the initial work, as they were doing their presentations, One of them got up, and I thought this was like a billboard, and you'll appreciate this. They said, you know, I never really thought about living on the east side or the near east. It didn't even occur to me. I thought I had an understanding of what that was. And now that I've been working here, this is where I want to live while I go to school. And I think the same thing could happen with that kind of interaction here in Beech Grove. So I'd be happy to help. I've got brochures with me. I'll leave them behind. You can call whether it's about this project or a completely other project, and I'll sit down and brainstorm with you and think about what we can do.
Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you.
So actually, let me just add to that before I start. I will say in talking to the mayor that he has already set up an internship for one of our students. So just in that one brief conversation we've had, we've already got one IUPUI student engaged in your community, I hope. So thanks. That was really quite enlightening. As we begin here too, I'd like to say that this PowerPoint presentation was put together by Kirsten, and a lot of the ideas came from Joe, who has just finished teaching, so he elected that I should come up here and speak, because I think he's kind of road weary from a day of teaching. But Joe and I have worked in many places all over the world. Most recently, I think, would be Haiti, where we've worked a lot on repurposing objects within communities. We're firm believers in not bringing in things into communities, but essentially finding out what the community wants and then repurposing some of the objects. So a lot of what we speak to this evening are based on those ideas. We've also worked together on a wonderful project in Hawaii that was repurposing shipping containers for primarily homeless people. So a lot of these ideas were sort of engendered from that. And we also had a group of students come with us on several of those trips. Okay, so that's sort of the background of this. I'm an architect. Kirsten's an interior designer. Joe is the MacGyver of the group. He pretty well knows everything and how to do everything, so he's a wonderful guy to have along. So I'll just run through this. Maybe it'll spark some discussion. Perhaps if we're running out of time, we can just plant this here, and then hopefully you guys can discuss it amongst yourselves. And also, the members of the public, I'd like you to, if you have any thoughts or ideas, we'd welcome them as well. Okay, so I think one of the things that attracted us as we began talking about this, in fact, we started talking about this in Hawaii, was we were in Hawaii and we were starting to think about, well, how can we do some of the things that we did in Hawaii and bring them back here to Indianapolis? And one of the ideas that Joe had was taking a look at trains. And so, Kirsten, if you just want to begin here. What we were thinking of, this is a wonderful community that obviously has a huge focus on trains and working on trains, and you have an amazing facility here that sort of frames your community. And we're not certain what that future is, and I'm sure maybe you don't have those answers either. But one thing we thought that we could do would be to take a look at trains, possibly the ones that aren't used, and then take them and then use them to develop some other alternative to using those trains. So these few slides speak to that. And then I'd like to sort of capitalize on what Teresa said in that our students will work for free in terms of developing ideas. So they can be the incubator of a lot of these things, and some of the things that Stephanie spoke to, whereby, you know, if you just need help, we can start to generate it. And when you need the people that need to sign the forms, when we need the developers, all right, that have the stamps and all of that stuff, we can pass it over. But we have access to tons of students that can generate ideas really rapidly, and they love working on these, quote, real projects. So in talking to Stephanie, and I hope we have it correct here, we were looking at, you know, this wonderful band of land that you have in behind the Amtrak facility. And Stephanie came up with the idea of maybe using that as a staging ground for some of these ideas that we have. So
that's actually what we're talking about right here is known as the CSX property, which is essentially abandoned. And there's also, I learned after I spoke with you, there's a great portion of that land that's still owned by Amtrak, which they are not using. So, and railway runs, track runs through all of that property. So, and they also have a great portion of their shops which are unused. And when I spoke to one of their electricians, and I spoke to their union rep, and they had spoken about basically, there's so much of that property that's unused. They used to employ a great number of people, which is greatly reduced by the economy and the subsidization of it and all those things. So, I think there's a definite partnership that can be worked out. I think it's good publicity for them, if not anything else. They need it. They need to put just the publicity of it. Just say, hey, we're still viable.
Well, we would welcome that opportunity. I guess what we need in moving forward is we need to meet these people in maybe a similar venue to this, where we could sit down and talk about some of the ideas that we have. I think it's meeting those key people who will champion these sort of ideas. So that's part of what we're after here this evening. Okay. So I think we're kind of speaking to the people that already know 90% of these things, but we just see this as a wonderful resource and a really interesting resource, just in terms of what these trains represent to the history of this community, and they tell a story, and why not continue to tell a story? What we've done, if you just want to keep sequencing through this, is here's an example of shipping containers. There's many shipping containers all throughout the world that are being unused. They're just shipped to ports and then left abandoned. And this is not a new idea of repurposing these things for shelter, for commercial purposes, for houses. Many people think here, for example, is a dormitory in Amsterdam that is made entirely of old shipping containers. They're strong, they're resistant to many of the areas of the world that we've worked in with respect to hurricanes, disasters, etc. And you can dress them up to not look like shipping containers, and you can dress them up to look like really decent houses, such as this. So this particular house here is made out of several shipping containers. Actually, interestingly enough, in Hawaii, they were really interesting to the surfing community because they could use these shipping containers, build a house really quickly, and not necessarily have to go through a lot of the development permits. They could just kind of camp out on their friend's lawn and use these things. So these are some of the things that we did in Hawaii. We actually worked with a group of people to help repurpose these shipping containers. And so, and Joe said, well, there's this excess of old trains in Indianapolis. And once we identified Beech Grove as having the repository of those things, we thought, well, what a wonderful idea. Maybe we could use this as an incubator for students to learn about how to repurpose things. One of the ideas we did have when we came back to IUPUI also was to take a shipping container and place it on our campus and turn it into a dorm room that would be off-grid, that would be powered by solar and wind. The short of this is that we can use your leftovers, and we can use the things that maybe you're questioning what to do with them. And there's wonderful examples. These are the examples that Kirsten has brought up that exist in Chicago, all parts of the world where people have used these things and just repurposed them. One of the things that we talked to your mayor about was, as you're redeveloping this new Main Street, maybe we could take one of the trains and place it somewhere on the Main Street, and a series of trains linked together could talk about the history of Beech Grove. And so people are attracted to that, and even bringing up the idea with Kirsten, she had mentioned that some of these things would be cool things for the next generation of people to have stores or shops or living conditions, and it may attract her generation to this community. It would be that unique take that I think communities in this city have, such as Mass Avenue has a particular feel. And I think those are some of the things that you people need to tell us is what sort of feel you might want in your neighborhood. So the short of this is that, you know, we have the expertise to do these things, both at a fairly highly technical level because we have the engineers and the Joe Tabises of the world with us, but we also have designers like Kirsten, and we also have that cheap labor that we could use to apply to this.
When I started talking about this idea with the Amtraks the guys that I know from growing up here, they're like, that's amazing, because when Katrina was here, we thought about trying to repurpose these cars to send them down there as housing units, you know, for disasters. Because he goes, the rail lines already run down there. All we got to do is put them on the tracks, run them down there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they're ready to live in, if we, you know, put in beds and cabinets or whatever, you know. And then I started talking to one of their electricians, and he goes, that's 72 volts, and we could hook that up to solar power. We could, you know, they're already thinking about this stuff, but they don't know. They're working their shift, and they get off, and they go home, you know. But they're going, if somebody was feeding these ideas, we donate our time.
Well, we have tons of ideas, and these are only parts of them. And we do have the expertise.
Your ideas,
yeah.
And their knowledge of the actual what's going on over there.
It's a wonderful marriage.
Them, it's explosive, and I mean, to me, you know, I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but it's just something I'm very excited about.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Right. I don't know, Joe, if you want to add anything as we move along here.
You're fine.
Okay. All right. You know, we met with Teresa. We've talked with other colleagues about this. It hasn't percolated up to a large number of people, so we're keeping it kind of close to ourselves at this point in time until we have the feedback from you people in terms of what you want to do. We don't want to come in here and say, this is our idea and we want to plan it here. The other thing that the mayor mentioned too is that we're educators. You know, our expertise is in training. So maybe one of the things that we could do is if we have people that know how to build things, know how to connect up solar panels to things, we can then train your people how to do that, and then therefore we leave that legacy within your community. You know, so we have expertise that we would like to leave here.
These guys are, I mean, they just seem like everybody that I've talked to so far, and we're just percolating ideas. I mean, nobody's saying, we're going to do this right now, but
Yeah.
they're going, wow, this is cool. Somebody's interested in what we're interested in, you know? And you get that kind of percolation going, and they're like, well, we thought about this during Katrina, you know, and now they're going, somebody really wants to do this, somebody wants to work with us, and we have the real world know-how. We've worked on these things all our lives, and you're going, let's take some new innovation and combine it with what you know, and it's just amazing to me.
Well, let's do it.
I think there's so much potential. I'm not saying, you know, anything's set in concrete. I just think let's put everybody in the same room and see what happens.
That's where we're going to need your help. You know, we're going to need your help in moving forward to meeting the right people and then organizing it into an actual project. Because everybody's doing this above and beyond their 9 to 5. So, you know, we want to get people together and mobilize and kind of get it working. So that would be kind of the next stage. So there's just a couple, I think the images speak more to this. I don't know if you know this, there's a really interesting development in Broad Ripple called Developer Town. And there's lots of precedents for this where you actually go into a huge warehouse and then people have these individual little cubicles. It's sort of like being in an office but without cubicles. The cubicles are actually houses and they're on wheels and they physically move them around. So possibly in one of these little houses there's a lawyer. So if you're working on a project, you just take your house and you wheel it over there and you're now connected to the lawyer. And these things are becoming really popular all over the United
It's
States.
a modular office.
Yeah, yeah. And so we were thinking, well, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have those things modular? If you could find a big building here in Beech Grove and take the trains and put them inside there and have them, you know, operate in a similar way. This particular one is called the Hub. It's in San Francisco. It's incredibly popular, and all it is just a big open warehouse where social entrepreneurs primarily come and meet and work. So it's like the extension of Starbucks. Everybody goes there to have coffee, but everybody in there is working, right? Which always amazes me. But now they've taken it out of Starbucks, and now the people have more control over, you know, whether or not they want to drink coffee or not. But here they're all working together as a collective think tank, which is a word that's, you know, Stephanie's already used. So, you know, maybe that's something that would really appeal and attract young people like Kirsten to come to this community, where there'd be cool things to do. And I think that's what we're all about.
Also, I feel like for me, coming to this community, it's sort of an untapped market. You know, Mass Ave is developed, Broderton is developed, and you guys are creating your own identity through these projects, which would draw like the designers, the architects, the people that want to work together and live in train cars. You know, that's my generation for sure.
And I want to see my generation sort of reinvent, but keep the same values that are here. I mean, we're a 100-year-old city. We have an identity, but let's take that identity and expand. You know, I want my kids to grow up here. Mine does, but I want his kids to want to grow up here. And what's going to accomplish that? It's not what's going on in the last 10 years. So let's try something else.
Well, and definitely just visiting here and taking pictures. I've been, the last 2 Fridays, I've sort of become more interested in Beech Grove. I only knew about Amtrak. I didn't know about your main street and, you know, everything else that's going on in your community. I stopped by when the fair was happening or the carnival.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
And most people that live here and have lived here their whole life, they don't even know what Amtrak does. I mean, they think it's a train station.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. They primarily refurbish passenger trains. That's what they do there. So, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but most of theirs is refurbishing passenger trains. So, you know, and most people go, oh, it's a train station. Not so much.
Does anyone want to, Jody, want to add anything to this? Because we're going to...
The only thing I would say is that Amtrak is, because it's here, you're connected to the entire country. It's very easy to get those overseas resources. Like we're talking about shipping containers, especially in the port cities, they're stacking up to the point where they're becoming eyesores for people because they're just boxes. They're not, nothing being done with them. And that kind of stuff can be brought here very easily because of the train.
And that's actually kind of one of the arguments I got in with the union rep, Tom Short. He goes, well, you know, most of the passenger trains over there, collectors buy them. And we don't have a lot of stuff sitting over there. I said, but you're connected to the rest of the United States, Canada, Mexico. You're connected to everywhere else. And all this stuff is sitting in yards somewhere that can be brought here. And I'm going, I said, we have all these shops over here, and you use, what, 30% of them, and the rest of them sit empty?
We kept it as a job. I mean, our job is to rehab the cars. So if we're pulling rusty cars out of Mexico, you can put them back to work rehabbing them and turning them into...
And like, all you've got sitting over there, Tom, are passenger cars. And yeah, people want to collect passenger cars and refurbish them and all that. And I said, but you can bring anything you want. It's on the rail line. Everything you've got in there is owned by CSX. So they run, you know, all over the country, literally all over North and South America. So you can bring anything you want into here, and they're sitting in yards everywhere. Getting them here, you know, it's another story, but let's give it a shot.
The other thing I'll add, you know, I'm thinking as you're talking about this too, is New Orleans. We do a lot of work with New Orleans, and the one particular community that we work with for quite some time had all these ideas, but they couldn't express them visually. You know, like they didn't have the drawing skills, they didn't have the ability to make all the really slick posters and that kind of thing. Well, we have an entire graphics department that can...
And free labor.
Yeah, you know, and we can
Somebody
turn
that
that
wants
into
to sit in
we can turn that into a student project.
Right.
And bingo, you've got
They
it.
get their grade, and you get your design, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, so, you know, we'd like to offer that up to the community as a resource that you could tap into.
And I want to say IUPUI has always been a good partner in this community, especially our school system. And a lot of people don't remember that, but as you and I spoke about, in the 6th grade, they came and offered us what was known as the Compact program that offered every student in our 6th grade class that met the requirements as far as grades. It was grades, you had to do community service, and you had to meet other requirements. And as long as you met those requirements, you didn't get in any trouble legally or whatever, then they would give you a full ride scholarship to IUPUI. And I was one of those recipients, so I know you've been a good community resource. So, and many of my friends, and I was only offered as a class of 98 as kind of a pilot program to see how it would go, but a lot of my classmates went to IUPUI, and a lot of my classmates that wouldn't even have gone to college went to IUPUI and graduated because of that program. So I think that it's a good opportunity for us, and I'm glad to see the partnership continue.
Well, thank you. Those are nice comments, believe me. I don't want to take up much more of your time, but
Yeah.
rather than just focus on one idea, we thought we'd at least bring two. So I want to segue into this other thing, which is also a Joe Tabus idea. I don't claim to own any of these ideas, believe me, but and I'll be brief on this. The idea is not only are there trains here, but there are also properties, houses, building materials. There's many of them in Indianapolis that aren't being used. And currently there are many creative opportunities, I think, from using some of the things that exist in the neighborhood other than just trains. So what we thought of was to take houses, buildings that aren't being used, that are sort of on the possible way out, and taking the existing building materials and then collecting them, rather than just taking them to the dumpster. And I think that would be a really nice thing for your community to say, that you know, we're now sensitive to the fact that there's some value in these materials. And then what we were thinking we could do is then take the materials, and then if you want to continue with the slides here, Kirsten, is so essentially someone, it could be us, it could be a third party, would demolish some of these residences or buildings, and then what we could do is strategically select the materials and then start to repurpose them. And then the other thing is that even in any of these abandoned buildings or resources that you have, they could be used as storage. So in other words, take these materials that we use from demolishing things, place them in a location, and then the other idea that we had would be to put teams onto this and essentially say to teams of students, and maybe the teams would include members of your community, whereby here's the materials we're going to give you. Now design us a new house, and you're only allowed to use these materials. And it goes in line with rethinking about how we can reutilize these things, and then maybe even redesigning and then building it. And maybe even through the process, we could give each team incentives whereby if you reach a certain goal at a certain point in time, then you have the ability, almost like a lifeline, where you could phone a company and get some solar panels contributed to your particular project. So we see it as a wonderful opportunity to have students compete against one another in order to find innovative solutions to using materials that normally would just be thrown away. We have made contacts ourselves to people that do demolition. Joe knows quite a few people that do that as well. So it's not only trains, I guess is what I'm saying, is that could almost be anything that we could reuse, such as bricks and old wood, old windows, and utilize the power and minds of our students to think about ways of redoing those things. So, you know, Kirsten's collected some examples of those particular projects. So what we can do in moving forward, and maybe my fellow colleagues can add to this, would be, you know, we can leave you these PowerPoints, would be one thing. And then what I would like to see is another meeting with the people that could champion these ideas for us. And so that we could start to, because strategically for us, it's always about the beginning of the next semester. So if we could have some ideas in place, and then we can plant some of these ideas right into our curriculum and have the students work on some of these projects as we move towards the spring, when we can likely get outside and start to build some of this stuff.
So if we come up with some things between now and December, you'll be ready?
Yeah, I think that would be a good timeline. That would give us time to think about how you've responded to what we've said here this evening. And then, you know, if we knew in early December some of the things that you might want to target and want to work with us on, then we can mobilize the rest of the...
I mean, it's just my personal opinion, I don't know what the rest of the commission, but I'd like to see kind of a little committee. We can only meet, because of state law, 2 of us at a time. Otherwise, it's considered a quorum.
Okay.
So, like, it could be me and Joe, or me and Dawn, or Kathy and Ron, or whoever, but we can meet 2 at a time. And I'd like to see some key people from Amtrak, some key people from maybe the building commissioner, or those kind of people, you know, in our community, and the mayor, of course, to sit in and say, just kind of make a mini think tank and say, what can we come up with?
Well, that would be wonderful.
I think that would be great.
We'd really appreciate
So,
that, and we can bring more players to the table.
We've got 3 new members just tonight, so let's give them 5 minutes to settle in, and then we'll all get together, not obviously together, but we'll talk on the phone, email, and figure out who's going to do what, and then we'll email you, and we'll try to get a hold of some Amtrak people and Mike Fitzgerald from our building commission and the mayor, and all sit down in one place and hack some things out. What do you think, Joe?
Let me ask some questions here real quick.
Sure.
Let's bring a little reality into this. The Redevelopment Commission is bound by our comprehensive redevelopment plan, so you understand that. CSX hasn't been a willing player. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad to see all this stuff. It's exciting and that, but understand what the reality is too, because we are bound by all this stuff. I'd love to get the community back behind us and get them coming up and hear their input, because redevelopment isn't a spectator sport. We need the community involved. And any redevelopment that's been done and successful, we've had as much community involvement behind it as possible, instead of a commission like us sitting there saying, you got to do this because, you know, I've sat out there and I've listened to it. So if we can get the public involved as much as possible and get them generated. And do you realize the constraints that we have as a redevelopment committee? Because we're bound by our comprehensive redevelopment plan.
Here's what I want to say to that. We're bound by our redevelopment comprehensive plan as far as money, not as far as ideas. Not as far as putting people in the same room, thinking up stuff, and creating things for the community. CSX has not been a willing participant as far as selling or leasing their property. They have no regard. We've never approached them as far as giving their property in a lease terms, as far as donating that to get federal funds. You're following what I'm saying. So if they can get tax credits or whatever they think they can get, they're going to go for it. That's how they are. That's what they want. And, you know, they've not been a willing participant in anything else, because everyone wants to, in my opinion, the previous administration wanted to try to dupe them out of their property to build a plastics plant. No, they weren't willing. But if they could get tax credits, if they could get, I mean, IUPUI is obviously a publicly funded university, so if they could get any kind of tax incentives from them, any kind of grants, or, you know, everybody's willing to do something for the right price. So, you know, have they been willing to do anything for us in other regards? No, but nobody's given them the right incentive, in my opinion. So that's my response to what Joe has to say, you know. And I'm not saying he's wrong, I'm just saying we have to try.
I don't think we'd want to do anything that the community wasn't behind.
Right.
You know, so that's why in coming here, I prefaced everything I said here this evening that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and
Yeah,
I appreciate the effort that you have there and showing the different designs and everything else. But if you look at what we did away with on that 7-county thing, they focused on Beech Grove, and they said they had 2 critical areas on Beech Grove, Main Street, and then they said Emerson Avenue. They said Main Street was the last real Main Street in Marion County, and it should still hold its structure and value the way it is. And from looking at what you guys have there, you can work around all that stuff. Just throwing some stuff out there, it looks like you guys are very flexible.
Exceeding yourself.
And I appreciate that, and I'm glad we're reusing stuff. You know, we need to reuse all the stuff that we can get.
Especially with the homes in Beech Grove, with them being as old as they are. That's, I mean, I think recycling with the up-and-coming youth and everything, it's imperative, as you know too. I mean, my daughter's 18, going on 19, and I have 15-year-old boys. It's all about reusable resources and everything like that. And so, you know, they come home with their parents and, you know, we need to recycle, we need to recycle. And so that was very refreshing to see, like Joe said, you know, that's a big deal.
It's
you
great
know,
to have
every home, you know, every door.
Yeah.
My house is 100 years old. Every door, you know, everything is, you know, I have wood floors under my carpet, you know, everything in there, you know, in some way, you know, if we were to go in through and remodel or have something redone, to know that it could be reused, you know, and in a lot of people's eyes, I think that would be something that would be, you know, great for them to know that it wasn't all going to waste. So that would be an incentive for a lot of things too, I think. So,
Well, thank you for those comments.
yeah.
We have a whole program in interior design if anybody wants help in redesigning their homes. I mean, seriously, we do that all the time.
But I think it's twofold. I think you guys can help us draw people to our community, but I also think that we can help you draw people to IUPUI and the things that you guys have to offer. Because, I mean, when I was growing up, I thought, IUPUI. And then when I got to choosing colleges, I went, oh, IUPUI, you know. But a lot of people around here don't think about it like that. It's so close, and there's so much to offer.
Yeah, a lot of the kids they think they want to go far away from home, and then they get far away from home, and they're calling every day, Mom, I'm homesick. I know, my daughter's at Purdue, and she's like, Mom, I need to come home.
But there's so much to offer now.
Yeah.
You know, and it really is amazing.
Yeah.
So we got, have anybody else have any questions?
Your presentation was wonderful. Thank
Well,
you
thank
very
you,
much.
and I'd like to thank
Yes,
Kirsten
thank
for
you.
putting it together.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was
Appreciate
very
that.
nice.
Yeah.
Can
It
you
was-
leave that PowerPoint
yeah.
behind so we can stick
Yeah,
that
that
on the
was-
web too?
That was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to have people
Yeah.
want to come in and actually help us.
That
Well,
is-
that's,
Don't get me wrong.
that's the bottom
That was
line.
very
That's
exciting.
exactly what we want to do. And Teresa can facilitate that, and, you know, I think it looks good on both of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just give me a little reality there.
No, fine. Yeah. Thanks for your time, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
the invitation.
Thank you.
We really appreciate
Appreciate
it.
your help.
Yeah.
And we will,
So I'll just wait for you to contact me.
we'll get a hold of you. I'll call you or email you, and once we all figure out what's going on, we'll get a hold of some people from Amtrak and the
Okay.
city and see if we can all help each other.
Okay? Yeah, thanks so much.
We appreciate
Yeah.
you. All right.
Okay.
Appreciate all of you coming.
All right. Now the fun part.
Would it be appropriate for us to leave now?
Yeah,
or-
you can.
Oh, okay, all right. Thanks.
Leave that stuff.
We're just gonna do the really exciting stuff like pay bills.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, you done, Tom?
You said you did have the... It's been a while. All right, we're gonna pay some bills, and it looks like we have RDC laptop, $321. Eric Witham. Peters Municipal Consultant, which is gonna be on our bond, $143.33. We also have another bill that is not on this ledger, but it does need paid. Crossroads Engineer. So contract amount. The contract amount was $3,500. Percent complete is $100. Its contract amount $6,500. Percent complete $100. Total bill $65. Tell me that makes sense.
Thanks,
Joe. It's
Nancy.
98.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. We're good.
That's not more than 68. To me, like, well, complete's $200, and you're billing for $32.50. I think I'm gonna request an itemized bill. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, I think that.
Okay, I'll let you guys look at it, but this bill isn't making sense to me. I'm gonna ask for an itemized bill on that before we pay it. This voucher is for $464.33. It is for a laptop computer and a consultant fee from Peters. And I'll let everybody take a look at it before we vote.
What are we talking about, a laptop computer? That's got me confused.
It was purchased, actually in anticipation of forming the CDC, which was never formed, but it has already been paid for, unfortunately. So the check has already been submitted to Eric Witham and cashed, and the computer is in our possession.
Working?
Yes. Basically, it's refurbished. It's pretty much brand new, so it's never really been used. And then Peters Municipal Consultants he consults on our bond fees. So I guess we'll take a look.
Talked to it once or twice.
I was gonna open the floor for public comment, but everybody left.
Still can. Got one public out there.
Oh yeah, he still says. Tim still. We got two.
Want to say anything, anyone?
Yeah, I don't know when you're getting ready to adjourn.
We're gonna vote on these bills and then we're gonna adjourn. If y'all have any questions about that, you just do it. Need a motion to approve this payable voucher for the computer and the consultant fee.
I'll make a motion to. Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any public comments?
I wanted to take about 5 minutes of your time and update you on Main Street project. Today we had a meeting with Hunt Having, and Jennifer should have passed down
Stuck at staff.
I'm stuck. All right. It's no.
some information. Everybody affected by the Main Street project, residents and business owners, received one of these this morning. And there's going to be about 2 or 3 things going on at the same time. The first thing that's going to happen is within 7 to 14 days, they're going to start removing the water main on Main Street. That is being coordinated by Hunt Paving. That is not associated with the Main Street reconstruction. It's something totally separate. They're going to start at the bridge and go along the north side of our Main Street to A Street. That's the first phase. So they'll be digging a trench on the north side of Main Street that's about 4 feet wide. And then once they put the pipe in, and test it, then they will hook up those residents affected in this area. Once that's done, they will go a block at a time until they've completed the project. This project is totally funded by Citizens Energy. Beech Grove hasn't a penny in this. But you need to know that because it's getting ready to happen. It's going to start within 7 to 14 days.
That's the schedule that we have in front of us.
The schedule you have in front of you, you see where it says Block 11, that's 11th Street, 10th Street, 9th Street, 8th Street, and it tells you where they're going to be at. And this project is going to run until February, the middle of February.
Why are they going to do it before they would do Main Street? Why don't they do it with Main Street?
Well, because the contractor is on Main Street. The Main Street project is being done by a company called Grade X. They were awarded the bid on the 12th of September. They're going to start around October the 20th, tentatively. They're not, I'm not going to speak for them because we haven't met yet, but my guess is they're not going to tear the road up originally. Initially, I think they're going to do the stormwater work. The stormwater work is going to be on the south side of the road. So they want to get the water main, they want to work ahead on the water main to get it out of the way.
They want those connections available on these streets here on the south, so they can connect right into them as they come up. So they want this work done first.
The water main will be buried about 5 to 6 feet. The storm sewers are going to be about 12 feet of ground. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how it plays out. So they're going to go up, and we don't know a whole lot about how Grade X is going to proceed yet because we haven't met. But we have a pretty good idea of how they're going to redo the water main. And it's going to cause a little bit of inconvenience, but we just have to be really good at the message. And Hunt Paving is going to have to be really good about what they say they're going to do. Now, in between all that is we meet with Calumet Paving next Monday or Tuesday, and we're going to give them a notice to proceed. And what they're going to do, once we give them notice to proceed, they have 30 days to complete a paving project throughout Beech Grove. What's pertinent to you folks is the alleys on Main Street, both north and south of Main Street. So all of this is going to...
That's the portion that we agreed to fund.
Yes. So all of this is going to be going on at the same time. So it's good for us, but it's going to cause a little bit of a headache. But I think it was a good call by the Citizens Energy to replace the water main. Because
it's going to be way harder for them to connect in afterward than it would be to put all these things in beforehand.
But you folks need to know it because the Main Street is in difficulty.
How old is the existing water main, Mayor?
I don't know.
Mine's about
Don't know.
45 or 50 years old.
Now, what exactly is going to happen to the alleys? Are they going to widen them? Are they going to just...
No, they were out marking utilities yesterday. What they're thinking about doing, there's a couple places, one of them is behind Kitley's. They're just going to have to dig it out and start over because some of those places are that bad. But I think for the most part what they're going to do is, and I talked to the superintendent yesterday, he thinks that they're going to mill down about 3 inches and then just go back over with 3 inches of new asphalt. He thinks that might do it. Except there are areas where they're going to have to dig out and put in a new base.
It's going to depend on the alley, basically.
Yes. But the key is they have 30 days to complete the project once the notice to proceed has been given to them.
And that's going to be on both sides?
Both sides of the Main Street, plus down in South Grove, they have about 5 or 6 roads of pavement.
So we're looking from what, Main Street to 13th or 8th Street or for the alleys? Or?
No, 2nd Street to 10th on the north side, 2nd Street to 11th on the south side. Some of the alleys are in good shape, they won't need anything, but a lot of them are really bad. And I appreciate the RCC stepping up. So. But you'll see a timetable of when Hunt Paving will be in the area. That will all be on the website where they can track it. And then Hunt Paving will give a week's notice, I think, to when they reconnect people. And they want minimal downtime. And they might even do weekends or evenings for businesses on Main Street so that there's no inconvenience.
Good.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
And a second?
There sure is.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.